Berhormat Tuan Chow Guan Yao, the Chief Minister of Penang.
Despite the challenges of floods and landslides in November 2017, the Penang Hill continues to stand tall.
Chief Minister of Penang, Yang Amat Berhormat Tuan Chow Guan Yao, State Secretary of Penang, Yang Berhormat Dato Muhammad Sayuti bin Bakar, Ayatam State Assemblyman YB Joseph Ng Sun Siang, Political State Assemblyman YB Lee Chun Kit, Executive Director of Penang Institute, Dato Dr. Ui Ki Bing, General Manager of Penang Hill Corporation, Dato Chok Lei Ling, author of The Great Hill, Enzo Sim, Penang Hill Corporation Advisory Board members, heads of departments, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to The Great Hill, a short history of Penang Hill book launch. Well, Penang Hill, as a once famed destination for colonists traveling between Europe and the Far East, has become a household name for everyone residing in Penang today. That's it. How many of us actually understand its historical significance? Published as part of the celebration for the Penang Hill Railway's 100th anniversary, it's from 1923 to 2023. The Great Hill captures many tales of its transformation and deep legacy from various aspects in the form of a short, informative, and easily readable history. This volume is jointly published by the Penang Hill Corporation (PHC) and Penang Institute as an effort to preserve the history and heritage of the hill, and is authored by Enzo Sim. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us now invite Dr. Ui Ki Bing, Executive Director of Penang Institute, to deliver a welcome speech. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Dr. Ui.
YB Tuan Chow Guan Yao, Chief Minister of Penang, Yang Berhormat Dato Muhammad Sayuti bin Bakar, State Secretary of Penang, Yang Berhormat Joseph Ng Sun Siang, State Assembly Member for Ayatam, Yang Berhormat Lee Chun Kit, State Assembly Member for Pulau Tikus, Dato Chok Lei Ling, General Manager of Penang Hill Corporation, Mr. Enzo Sim, author of The Great Hill, Penang Hill Corporation Advisory Board members, heads of department. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Penang Institute, this time as a guest of both Penang Institute and Penang Hill Corporation. We are very happy to have Chief Minister YB Chow Guan Yao here with us to officiate and to launch our latest publication, and to see so many other VIPs attend this important event. The book we are launching, called The Great Hill, A Short History of Penang Hill, is a joint project between Penang Hill Corporation and Penang Institute, and is happily available today for all of you to purchase as part of the celebrating of the centennial of Penang Hill Railway. And all the books today will be signed by the author, I think. As some of you would know, I may be a political historian interested in language, philosophy, and such stuff. But underneath everything lies a conviction that nothing can be properly said and understood if its history is not properly captured and debated. So at Penang Institute, we have been facilitating different histories about Penang, the latest before this book being the history of St. Xavier's Institution. Presently in the works, we have a history of land reclamation in Penang, and another on the history of land use in Penang. We also, of course, already have a history of Penang's industrialization, and one on the Malay community in Penang as well. But the history of Penang Hill is something that simply had to be written. And we were very happy when Dato Chok Lei Ling came to us in the midst of the COVID pandemic and asked if we could help Penang Hill Corporation publish a book on Penang Hill. Long story short, we said yes, and here it is today, this book. To make this an special occasion, not only do we have the Chief Minister gracing Penang Institute today, we have put together a panel to discuss our beloved hill later on. We have the author, Enzo Sim, with us. We have Dato Chok, Penang Hill Corporation General Manager. We have Ahmad Chik, social activist and hill resident. And we have Mr. Alan Tan, Managing Director of Penang Hill, The Habitat, to share their thoughts, their love, and their worries about the hill, which always stands behind us, which always has our back, and which beautifies Penang from any direction you look. So welcome again, everyone. Enjoy the evening and buy a copy of the book.
All right, thank you very much to Dr. Uy for the welcome speech. Next, let's welcome Dr. Chok Lei Ling, General Manager of Penang Hill Corporation, to deliver an opening remark.
A very good evening to everybody. We'd like to extend the appreciation for attending this the book launch, a very special occasion. Special because it is 100-year anniversary of the Penang Hill Railway. It's worthy of celebration. It's very special because it's the first book that we hope to publish to encourage and nurture the understanding of Penang Hill in a very much more simple way, easier to remember. And it's also special because of an occasion like this, it's hard to come by. And I always tell myself and also my colleagues is, how many times you get to celebrate 100 years of something. So I think we got to do a lot more. And once again, good evening, everyone. And Yang Amat Berhormat, Tuan Chow Kwang Yao, Chief Minister of Penang, Executive Director of Penang Institute, Dr. Uy Kibing, State Secretary of Penang Yang Berhormat, Dato' Muhammad Sayuti bin Bakar, Penang State Assembly members, YB Joseph Ng, Mr. Adun of Aritam, YB Chris Lee, Adun of Pulau Tikus, and also the author of The Great Hill, Mr. Enzo Sim, and also my fellow colleagues and friends from the medias, and also all of you who attend this evening. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the launch of the Great Hill book, co-published by Penang Hill Corporation and Penang Institute, and authored by Enzo Sim. Enzo Sim, by the way, is a young local author. He's not from somewhere. He's local, born and bred Penang. His home is in Tanjung Tokong. It is certainly a very appropriate venue here to discuss about this new book. Not only is Penang Institute the co-publisher, it is also one of Malaysia's foremost think tanks. Penang Institute's aspiration, among others, is to promote the interest in Penang's cultural activities, specifically in the literary pursuits. This has certainly presented opportunity to young aspiring writers to share the tales of the local history and heritage. Penang Hill Corporation certainly is proud to be part of this adventure. So, Penang Hill is not called the Great Hill for nothing. We can discuss a little bit better about why it is called Great Hill. Certainly has history. Biodiversity, heritage, culture, Penang Hill has it all. As the country's third UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, listed in September 15, 2021, Penang Hill's rich biodiversity is noteworthy as it houses a variety of species that are endemic to the hill. On the heritage aspect, Penang Hill's iconic funicular is known as the oldest Penang Hill station in the British colonies. The hill is also a site of many heritage bungalows. Some dates back to the early 1800s. We put a stake on the ground that Penang Hill is the oldest hill station in the British Empire because it started in the late 18th centuries, while the others started somewhere in the 19th centuries. With homes growing around the hill, it has certainly created a close-knit community that forms a unique culture. Penang Hill is certainly a priceless gem to Penang and Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, as many of you might already know, the Penang Hill Railway will turn 100 years old on 21st October this year. To commemorate the important milestone, Penang Hill Corporation, in collaboration with various partners and stakeholders, will be organizing a variety of activities to celebrate this centenary celebration throughout this year. PHC is a firm believer of documenting history and sharing this knowledge to those who seek. Through this effort, we hope to encourage more local writers to come forward to write, not just about Penang Hill, but also on Penang's glorious history and folk tales for future generations to know. On this note, I'm proud to announce that the Great Hill book is one of the few books that we will be publishing this year in conjunction with the centenary celebration. If you have not followed Penang Hill's social media accounts, I would like to take this opportunity to do a bit of sell job to invite all of you to do so. Keep your eyes peeled to our next 2 books launches and other exciting activities. Like Penang Institute, we too hope to publish more stories, more books around Penang Hill. I think the coming ones will be something to do with the Penang Hill Railway, obviously. Please follow our Facebook and news. Ladies and gentlemen, as readers flip through the pages of this book, be prepared to travel back to the past and relive the history of Penang Hill. From the early days of the glorious Penang Hill Railway to the dark tales of the hill, this book is suitable for both local Penangites and those who travel from far to marvel at the hill. While there are plenty of books written on the hill, this is certainly a good addition to your shelf as it captures the essence of Penang Hill. I hope all of you will have a wonderful time reading this book and be awed by the many wonders of Penang Hill. I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to my colleagues at Penang Institute and also Penang Hill Corporation for collaborating on this meaningful project, and more importantly, for sharing our passion and love for the hill. To the author, Enzo, congratulations and thank you for bringing back to life another piece of Penang Hill's colorful history. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much to Dato' Chok Lei Ling for the opening remark. Now let's invite Yang Amat Berhormat Tuan Chow Guan Yao, Chief Minister of Penang, to deliver a launching speech. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for CM.
Thank you. Selamat malam dan salam sejahtera. Honorable Datuk Muhammad Sayuti bin Bakar, State Secretary of Penang, Honorable Joseph Ng Sun Siang and Chris Lee, State Assembly Representative, Dr. Ui Ki Beng, Executive Director of Penang Institute, Dato' Chok Lei Ling, General Manager of Penang Hill Corporation, author of The Great Hill, Mr. Enzo Sim, Penang Hill Corporation Advisory Board members, head of departments, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here this evening to launch this milestone book, The Great Hill, jointly published by Penang Hill Corporation and Penang Institute. As chairman of both these organizations, it gives me double pleasure to be present here to present to you the story of our Great Hill, published as part of the centenary celebrations of Penang Hill Railway. Penang Hill is a household name for everyone who has resided in Penang, but how many of us actually understand its historical significance? The publication of this book, The Great Hill, authored by Mr. Enzo Sim, when he was attached to Penang Institute as a writer, is indeed timely. Readers will be astounded by many of the tales told in this book about the hill, and I'm sure we will learn to appreciate the history of its transformation and its deep legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, knowing history helps us to understand how the present came about. As the chairman, I'm fully aware that it is the ambition of both Penang Hill Corporation and Penang Institute to capture as many aspects of Penang's history as possible. And since Penang Hill is such a central part of Penang's social consciousness, its history is indeed central to our understanding of ourselves. Did you know, for example, that Penang Hill was the first hill station the British founded in the region? And did you know that it became a most important destination for colonialists traveling between Europe and the Far East? Convalescence on the hill accelerated the recovery of many sick administrators or wounded soldiers, making the hill a famed destination across the world. The Hills Railways, opening on 21st October 1923, almost a century ago, spawned many private bungalows, thus attracting many public amenities and encouraging various economic activities at the time. This century-year-old funicular railway that was revived, designed and built by Arnold Robert Johnson, an engineer with the Federated Malay States Railways, will always be remembered as a great engineering feat that sparked the economic transformation of Penang Hill, supported by the settlements in Air Hitam and Air Puteh. Today, Penang Hill is not only a popular tourist destination, attracting more than 1 million visitors per year since 2017, except during the COVID-19 pandemic period. Last year itself, the total number of tourists to Penang Hill was 1.362 million, which is quite remarkable considering that we had been through what we had been through during the pandemic, especially its impact on our tourism industry. Moreover, Penang Hill also served as the green lungs of the state. This function has gained international recognition, and the whole northwestern part of Penang Island, centered around the hill, was granted the status of being a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. This accolade was received on 15 September 2021 under the auspices of the UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program. I am delighted that Penang Hill Corporation, working with Penang Institute, has created a succinct and easy-to-read book that will assist in preserving the history and heritage of Penang Hill. I take this opportunity to also congratulate the author, Mr. Enzo Sim, for his diligent research and his flair for writing in stringing together the stories of Penang Hill to give us this book. I have no doubt that this effort will spawn more aspiring writers to venture into writing about the many aspects of Penang's history. We have also a panel discussion following this to be moderated by Ki Bing himself. The panel will consist of the author, Enzo Sim, Dr. Cheok, Mr. Alan Tan, who is the managing, I didn't see you on the front row, managing director of Penang Hill, the Habitat, and Encik Ahmad Sheikh, also on the second row, social activist and Penang Hill resident. I wish all of you a fruitful discussion. I'm very honored now to launch the Great Hill, and I wish the book every success. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, the Chief Minister of Penang. Kindly remain on stage. Now, let's also invite Dr. Chok Lei Ling, Dr. Ui Ki Bing, and Enzo Sim to join us for the next agenda. So with this, we are proud to announce the launch of The Great Hill, a short history of Penang Hill. And now we would like to invite a distinguished guest on the stage to sign the mock book cover. And we would also like to invite the State Secretary of Penang, YB Dato Muhammad Sayuti bin Bakar, and ITAM State Assemblyman YB Joseph Ng Sun Siang to join us on stage for a group photo. And also YB Chris. Okay, kindly remain on stage, gentlemen. Now I would like to invite Yang Ma Berhormat Tuan Chow Kuan Yeow to present a souvenir to Enzo Sim. Thank you. And now we would like to invite Dr. Chok Lei Ling to present a souvenir to Yang Amat Berhormat Tuan Chow Kuan Yeow. All right, thank you, everyone. Please be seated. And coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite the author of the book, Enzo Sim, together with Dr. Chok Lei Ling, General Manager of Penang Hill Corporation, Mr. Alan Tan, Managing Director of the Habitat Penang Hill, and Mr. Ahmad Chik, a longtime resident of Penang Hill, to join us for a panel discussion moderated by Dr. Ui Ki Bing. Please.
Hi, I'm Jake. Hi.
Okay.
So I now pass the mic over to Dr. Ui. Enjoy, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, thank you, Kim. First, welcome to our panelists, all of you, Dr. Chok, Enzo, Alan, and Amachik, to this panel to discuss the book and, of course, the wider issue of Penang Hill and so on and so forth. Before I start, there's something that's occurred to me in recent times when working on this book and talking about it, that we might have the hill, but the bottom of the hill, of course, is very important. And the bottom of the hill is where it connects to the rest of Penang, right? So from Georgetown, you go past the whole way, all the way to Aitam, Aipute, and so on. And it occurred to me that one sign of how important this place was, the foothills of Penang Hill, is that you have cemeteries all around. You have Batu Lancang, you have Batu, yeah, and then you have Pai Trubong and so on. And they sort of mark out the area where everyone lived. And when you die, you go to the side of whatever that area is, right? So it's quite clearly marked out, so you can see how important Aitam Aipute actually must have been, and how it must have been the breadbasket even for Georgetown itself. So the importance of the hill and the foothills, really. But let's start the panel discussion, and of course it's only fair to ask the author first about the book and how it was working on the book to start with, and maybe you would like to share some experiences from writing the book, and maybe about the difficulty in finding sources, and in the whether or not the sources could be verified in many cases, which is always a problem when you write about history, right?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Dr. Yu, for the question. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank a few really key persons for the production of this book, namely the Penang State Government, with the support of YBCM Tuan Chow Kwan Yeow for supporting this initiative, and also Penang Institute, Dr. Ui, for really helping me with the editing of the book and also the final production of the book, and also the initiative that is supported and the assistance that have been given by Dato' Chok Lei Ling and all his staffs at the PHC. And so, first of all, my interest in Penang's history basically started off with the 1786 when Captain Francis Light founded the first British settlement in what was then called the Tanjung Penaga, back then at the Point Penaga, in which is basically the Georgetown right now. And from there, when he laid down the foundations of such a settlement, they started to look upon the hills, and that is what was then called as the Great Hill back then. And so the difficulty of trying to piece together the puzzles of history lays in the lack of documentation, as Dr. Ui has stated back then. So majority of the sources came from the National Library Board of Singapore. National Library Board of Singapore has a very rich a list of rich resources on regarding not just Penang, Prince of Wales Island back then, and also the Federated Malay States and all. So it fascinates me on how these little puzzles can be put together, not just from the National Library Board of Singapore. That's where I started the journey of researching, and also through places as far as, of course, the archives in the UK, the National Archives, where I found a lot of information that are in bits and pieces. And so getting them together in a puzzle is really a challenge. But then through guidance of people like Dr. Ui, it has been a very fruitful journey in piecing together everything. And what particularly interests me is the evolution of the hill. Now, the evolution of the hill is very important to the understanding of the whole formation of the Penang's history and social fabric, I would say, because we often overlook the original starting point of the hill. From as early as the 1790s, when the first military detachment was sent up to what was then called the Government Hill, which is today the compound of Bel Retiro, the Penang governor's official residence, and how this detachment was put in charge of overlooking the security of the whole Prince of Wales Island, which was then facing a real threat from the French naval forces back then during the Napoleonic Wars, as we call it back then, that was fought between Napoleonic French and also the British Empire back then. So the threat was real, and so the detachment was sent there and set up a lookout point. And from there, it moved to the function of Government Hill being set up with the very first Government Hill bungalow before Bel Retiro was named after that original bungalow following the restoration. So we can see how it served as the official residence of the successive British governors, and also how it has hosted so many dignitaries from overseas up until today. And apart from that, one thing that people would also overlook is the point that the hill served as a spot for convalescence for so many people, particularly back then in the late 18th and 19th century, when scientific studies in diseases like malaria was in its very early stage, and the hill was believed and has proven to be an ideal place for people to recuperate and to convalesce and to heal from such tropical diseases as malaria, and how it evolved through time up until the modern times. During the Second World War, it became a refuge, a place where the locals seek refuge during the Japanese occupation. So I think all these points are particularly important to the understanding of the whole society of Penang, and yeah.
And the role Penang actually played in the everyday life.
Yeah.
And the travails of the people of Penang.
Yeah.
That point you made earlier, I found interesting when we were discussing the book, right? That when Francis Light and people, they took the island, and of course, like every good soldier, you take the lowland, and the first thing you do is think of where to put your scouts.
Yeah.
And so, of course, that's what Penang Hill would have been. It wasn't just a place that told you when the post was coming. The letters were coming, but it was actually, there were military considerations from day one for them to be that. Now, even if the Napoleonic Wars hadn't started immediately, but it started very soon after.
Yeah.
So that's an important point for all of us to remember, really, that it wasn't always honky-dory, And disease, of course, was always important. I think Francis Light himself died of some
succumbed
fever,
to malaria, yes, yeah.
And many, many others, I think. COVID is nothing compared to it. Thank you for that, Enzo. May I now turn to Dato' Chiop? You're the one to give the credit to or to blame, whichever it is. Because you came to us, I think it was just beginning of the COVID or just early before that. I'm not sure now. Just before, right?
Before that.
With the idea that we should have a book on Penang Hill. And so, of course, we very gladly agreed to do that. It took its time because of COVID and certain other considerations. So tell us about your fascination with the hill and why you thought the book was necessary, and especially your fascination with the railway.
All right. So let me start with why we started this book. I think when I first got into this job, 2017, we received many requests. Especially the students and institutions coming to Penang Hill corporations, looking for data, looking for historical facts. And I found that we have none of them. So we went to the museum, libraries, searching for information, including Penang Institute. So I was excited when I first walked in Penang Institute, looking, there's an abundance of books, but to really find something, a single source or a good source of information about Penang Hill, I can't find any other than the books written by Marcus Langdon. I think he's somewhere here, he might be here.
Yeah,
I bump into him, Marcus. It's so generous to share a lot of information with me. We had, coffee sessions, 3 hours, 4 hours, must be, right? And Mike Gibby too. So he came to my office and shared with me his books, and also very old annual reports in the 1940s, I think 1950s. So I started thinking of myself that, hey, Penang Hill corporations and then the local Penang ought to have a book that is simple, for people to read. And it's good, Marcus' books is actually very good for us. It's a good source of reference. But a book where our tourists, the people who come to us, would be able to pick up and then read the whole stories about Penang Hill. And this is also, when I got into the job, I got to know the local community. Everybody I talked to, whenever they talk about Penang Hill, you could see the glow in their face. When I talked to Dato' Sri Dr. Anwar Faisal, I could see this excitement, the whole energy. Anybody, whether, people, the middle station, the farmers, they will talk to me about the old tales of Penang Hill, what they've done, the old stories, the hardship they went through. But despite the hardship, you sense the happiness, the proudness of it. So then I decided to embark on this book. I think we ought, and as well as I discovered, we don't have any local writers actually write about books. So I have the dual objectives, The second one is perhaps a selfish one, to say, we need to nurture, we need to cultivate more local writers. who knows about history, who are able to connect with the local people. Enzo speaks Hokkien, so he might be able to get even more stories from now on, from local community, the farmers, lives, they live on the hill, the history, they live through 3 generations, 4 generations. I know I have Mr. Raja here, who's the fourth generations residents on the hill, has a lot of oral history. So that if we don't pass it on, I think it will be lost at some point in time. So hopefully this is the first steps in that journey, and hopefully we can contribute, to cultivating, nurturing more, local writers. Yeah. So the second part, why am I fascinated with the hill? Because there's a lot of stories about the hill. Every bungalows and every parts of the hills is tied to some historical significance, piece of Penang history. So, and I always say that the Penang Hill history is almost synonymous with the Georgetown history. You hear about Francis Light, you hear about Moniot, you hear about the Husus of Penang, and then it's the same name that appeared on the hill too. So I think it's worthwhile, for us to, as a community here, to capture the essence of the glorious past history. So, and it's also very important for us as part of conservation and preservation efforts. The history is part of it. It's not just the nature, right? I'm attracted by. I've been many hills and mountains throughout the world. We have the famous ones made famous by local writers, poets, singers. Everybody knows Rocky Mountain. John Denver, who sings that Rocky Mountain High. Right? What was the lyrics again? I see rains and raining fire in the sky, and then I also see the shadows of starlights, like a lullaby, things like that. So, and then you have Ansel Adams actually, who writes a lot of poems and photographs about the famous Yosemite National Park in California. So, and I've been to California Yosemite many times. And then you have John Merle, actually, who started the national parks. Basically the father of national park systems in United States, perhaps the national park systems in the world, actually. So all the national park systems actually learn from the U.S., Yellowstone being the very first one in the United States. So I think we need to have, as part of conservation effort, we hope to have more local writers write not just books, poems, songs about Penang Hill, the special accents, the special characters, that the folk tales, even the ghost stories. And then even make it more special, actually, this year, 100 years anniversary. And as I read through Enzo's book, and dawned on me that 21st October is the day that we celebrate the anniversary of the Penang Hill Railway in 1923. And 21st October is also the day that Francis Light died. So how irony it is. So we're going to celebrate, what was it, the year now? 1824? In the book it's written, I can't remember. So it's written somewhere in the... I think we're going to celebrate both, two different anniversaries, so it's something very special. So I think the Penang Hill Railway has carried over 47 million passengers. So we have record actually nearly 100 years, although we missed a few years. We'll kind of do extrapolations and then we figure out there's probably somewhere between 47 million to 50 million passengers. Why there's an extra? Because as you know, Penang being Penang, there are many people who took the ride and then didn't pay for it. So always asking for discounts or discounts. It's not the 50% discounts, or discounts to zero actually. So I got to capture those numbers. That number is much higher than 47 million. I'm pretty sure of that. So Yeah. So it's actually has historical significance. It was an engineering marvel, the first of its kind in Southeast Asia. A.R. Johnson actually died in 1966. Took a challenge actually as a federated Malay states engineer when he was posted in Taiping, and came over and then took the challenge to do the railway a second time. Right, the first time was a failed project, and then and he had to redesign it. He studied the railway systems in Hong Kong, which started the services in 1888, and ours in 1923. The first service to the public was 21st October. That was a sort of a soft launch into this term, and then the official launch was the first January 1924. So it is. It plays a huge role, and I see not just the tourism, but I see there's a socio-economic development of Penang Island, very specifically the Aitam area. So hence we call it the theme of the celebrations 100 years of transformation. It's not just how they transform the hill, but it's also transform the areas around the hill, as Dr. Wee mentioned. You see houses and kind of sprout to villages, sprout around the hill. So it does, it did in many ways actually transform many people's life, livelihood that center around the railway. So hence, I think I want to give credit to Rick Francis, who wrote the book, Penang Hill Railway. It was in Perth, Australia. Actually, was kind enough actually to allow us to use a lot of photographs and the content from the, and then we're going to have a mobile exhibitions to talk about the railways. In fact, one of the next book that we hope to publish very soon is about the railway. Not a heavy technical book, but rather a book that people will enjoy, kind of fascinated by the different phases of the railway and funicular system. So, sorry, answer is a bit long.
Okay, it's okay. Yeah, but if I continue your romanticizing about the hill, I've lived in a few cities, right? Considered beautiful places, could be Stockholm, could be Singapore, even Beijing. What they don't have and what we have is that we have a hill as the backdrop, right? Now, not all of you would agree with me, but our urban skyline in Penang is not the greatest in the world, really, right? Our buildings are not the greatest, but the hill makes everything okay. That's how I see it. Wherever you look, really, in Penang, you see the hill behind it, and it makes it okay. It's a rather soothing that way. Also, I should perhaps tell everybody that while we were working on the book and getting the book done, we were at the same time working with Marcus Langdon and Mike Gibby, right, and Enzo and myself, to get the content for your Penang Hill Gallery, right, which was launched last year by the Chief Minister himself. So those two projects were sort of going together. So don't be surprised if you see certain things mentioned in the book that might be mentioned in the gallery as well. And the gallery, of course, has a special room for your railway as well. So for all of you who haven't been to the Penang Hill Gallery, I would suggest that you visit, take a look. My next question, if I turn to Ellen. Ellen, I think I met you for the first time quite a few years ago at a dinner, Nonya food, I think. You had
One of many, I'm sure.
yeah. You had just come back from Hong Kong, right? At that time, and you were going to start running the habitat, if I remember correctly. It's been a few years now. How has that been?
A few years and a lot of white hair.
Yeah. The mountain air isn't good for you.
Yes. No, it's been a journey. It's been a wonderful experience. I was just having dinner with my friend Keith Houghton earlier tonight before coming, and telling him how blessed I feel and how lucky I feel to be involved in the Habitat project and to be part of the Penang story, I guess, for want of a better phrase, to be able to contribute to Penang and to help put Penang on, hopefully on the map around the world, globally. In our case, of course, our focus is very much on biodiversity conservation and on promoting the nature and green aspects of Penang, starting with the hill, but of course, by no means ending with the hill. But yeah, I feel very privileged and honored to be a part of this. And my dear friend Chok has been. I see him as a mentor as well as a friend. I've learned so much working with him side by side in the last 6, now going on 7 years, and especially when we were going for the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve listing. And I can't wait to continue to work with him and his team and everyone here, of course, people in the audience as well, to take to really realize the full potential of what being a part of the world network of biosphere reserves can be for Penang as a state and as a place. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. Well, I love the habitat. I've been there a few times with the kids as well, and gone on some of your rides, right? Beautiful. But of course, all the time there's a certain worry, when you're doing all this in the middle of quiet nature and all that. And you sort of think in the back of your head, I hope not too many people discover this. Right? because there is that balance. So I wanted to ask you, working in a place like that, you obviously love nature as well.
Yes.
And you want people to come.
Certainly.
But I wonder this sense of balancing it. Let's not be too successful, that kind of thing. What do you think of that?
I think for us, we are out to prove that you can benefit from nature without over-exploiting it and without destroying it. I think that's really one of the missions of the habitat, and one of our missions as an organization, to show and prove that you can live in harmony with nature, and that you can derive benefits from it in a sustainable way. That's why we were so enthusiastic about the Man and Biosphere program and the listing, because the Man and Biosphere program is not about protection for protection's sake or conservation for conservation's sake. It's about biosphere reserves are model sites for sustainable development, actually. And it is to readdress our relationship with nature, to push the boundaries on sustainability and sustainable development.
Right.
Yeah, so that's really, I think, very important. A very important aspect of the Penang Hill Biosphere Reserve listing, which I think sometimes is oftentimes forgotten and overlooked.
Thank you. I'll turn now to Encik Ahmad Sheikh, one of the luckiest people in Penang, because he lives on the hill and he has the best view over Penang, really. Ahmad, over to you.
I had my advance copy yesterday, and it so happened that I had a couple of hours waiting for the doctor. And I did some speed reading, so I went through your book yesterday. And I want to congratulate you for doing something which I always felt has not been done enough. The role of the laborers, the coolies, who actually built the Penang Railway. They were never recorded. And goodness knows how many of them died building that railway, Because I think Raja showed me just below the viaduct. There's a place where they used to stay, and they cook there, and they live in very humble circumstances, And as I said, how many died from accidents and disease? And I'm glad you made some acknowledgement of their role. 30 years ago, I was involved in a rather large campaign with some people who are also here still, trying to prevent overdevelopment of Penang Hill. And one thing which amazed me was the support we got. It was universal, really. And the support was not only from the people of Penang, but we had letters of support from as far as Malaysians, obviously, living in Canada and Australia and the US. And I think it emphasizes how important and how close we are to Penang. And I think no child in Penang really has not been spared the walk up Penang Hill. And many of us in our younger days might have spent wonderful nights living in those bungalows. Remember those bungalows where people used to go there in their dozens and stay up all night telling ghost stories. And I think that has become part of growing up in Penang. And I think we should try to maintain that, you know. And it is a matter of regret to me that there's now no place in Penang Hill which is really affordable for the average person. And perhaps we should, the CMC here perhaps should consider that CM. Try to create some place for younger people can go and spend nights and, you know, that's it, scare each other. You know, I want to share a story. Enzo mentioned that the top portion of Penang Hill was reserved for Europeans only. And in my house started, was stated there, you know, but was cancelled, of course, when I bought it. Before I bought it in the 50s, 56, 57, the person who lived there was called Liston, who's lived there for a long, long time. English. He was a race course owner and a race horse owner and all that. He was a rubber trader. And at that time, there was another big Chinese rubber trader called Hia Juxiang, a name which I'm sure you know about. Liston invited Hia Juxiang for dinner in his house up on Penang Hill, where my house is. And they must have had a very good dinner because Hia Juxiang missed the last train. So Liston said, okay, stay over. At 3 in the morning, had a telephone call from the British resident. Now, the British resident is really the chief minister and the governor rolled into one. He was the most powerful man in Penang. And the British resident said, I hear that you're a bloody Chinaman living in your house tonight. Get him down. And Liston had to go and get the railway started, and here you had to go down that night also. I mean, it's not a pleasant tale, but it shows another side of the more unpleasant side of what happened. My love story, my love for Penang Hill started when I was a 10-year-old. In those days, 10-year-olds, you could go out anywhere in Penang. And I think for every Raya, we would spend our little money to go up Penang Hill. And I think Malaysia will confirm that for Raya, you wear new shirt, new trousers, new leather shoes. So we go up to Penang Hill and we walk up the top. But by the time I get to where my house is, my feet will start to blister because I was wearing new shoes. And this happened every year. So my house was etched in my memory. That's the place I got this far. I could. And when, as a grown-up man, the house came up for sale, I had to buy it. So I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I remember, I must have been 7 or 8. I lived in the Rifle Range area before the flats went up. And so as a young boy, you climb the foothills, as it were, on weekends. And I think the first snake I ever ran into was climbing up that hill. And you always had this sense of this hill behind you, always giving you that support, you know. So living at the bottom of the hill was, what to me, a very important experience. Before I open up to the public for questions and comments, any last comments from the panel before I open the floodgates? No? Well,
Maybe I should add one.
yeah.
Yep.
I should also add this book is so special because I have to confess that this is our third attempt. And essentially, this book is been written 3 times by 3 different persons. The last one was Enzo. We managed to get it published.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, open to the floor. Any comments or story about Penang Hill, personal ones you want to share? Or any questions for the panelists? For the author especially. That's free.
I just wanted to add that one of the most prominent things about Penang Hill was actually the flag, and the flag staff. And that was the thing that identified that place and also showed the supremacy of the British, because the putting up of the flag and everything was also the viewing spot for enemies and everybody else. And the fact that that led to the Malay name of this hill, and it became to be known as Bukit Bandera. Yeah? And it's amazing how that flag gave the name in Bahasa to the hill. And that's what I just wanted to share. Thank you.
In line with that, Enzo, you talked to me once about the flagstaff, and that wasn't the first place they put up the flagstaff, right?
Yes, in fact, it was in the on the peak of Mount Erskine.
That's right. Okay.
And Mount Erskine, so that was the first one. And for that being the first one, the reason that it was later on moved to the Government Hill, the peak, the highest, the peak of the Government Hill was because the lookout point, the panorama from atop Mount Erskine was limited. And so when Government Hill was later on better landscape and plotted with the small detachment of sentinels, it became a place where, as I mentioned, to look out for enemy ships and also any ships that are incoming into the port of Prince of Wales Island. And so that served as a very important function. I think that sets Penang Hill apart from other hills that we have in Malaysia, like Cameron Highlands, Fraser's Hill, which was largely for convalescence and leisure tourism. Yeah.
They were just good for strawberries and stuff.
Can I just ask a question? Near the temple, there's a cannon. Do you know the story behind that cannon? Is it in any way related to Penang Hill's role as a lookout point for approaching ships?
It was the signaling, if I'm not mistaken, it's a signal gun that accompanies the hoisting of the flag back then, because there was no walkie-talkie, there was no WhatsApp, there was no messenger back then. So the only method, in fact, for the sentinels, the military detachment on top of the Government Hill to communicate with the authorities down below Georgetown is through the hoisting of flags, with a lot of a list of signal flags that signifies the size of the ship and also the type, the nationality of the ship. I think this Marcus Langdon back there, his book, the presidency of India book has the first volume has listed down a very complete list of the signal flags and what it represents, what it signifies. That inspires me to that is.
Isn't the site of where the gun is now actually called Gun Hill?
Yeah, Gun Hill.
Historically, yeah. So it was the signal gun, essentially. Yeah.
So they had certain simplified codes that they could signal.
Yes.
Here's a big ship, here's a small ship, here's whatever.
Yeah. So they would there's a way of communicating between the ship itself, which is incoming, sailing into the port, and also after it's signaled back from the flagstaff to the ship, and then the ship that would identify itself
Yeah, just now I just remember when Jamat mentioned about the record about the laborers actually built the railway. Actually, there's a little bit of writings in the journals written by A.R. Johnson, published in 1925. Where he published into the Institute of Civil Engineers, where he wrote the records, how he built the Penang Hill Railway. So it did mention it's actually 25-page journal articles, and with the calculations and all that. So at the final part of that is writing, at a peak, there was about 1,200 laborers actually built the railway track. Of course, he didn't mention how many died along the way. So because, and then about 600 of them who came from India, the other 600 of them came from China, actually. So, so I thought just yeah. So we have the original copy. Again, thanks to Rick Francis, who actually brought it all the way from Australia to our office. Presented to us that for safekeeping, and then but we also scan them. Any one of you interested, we'll be we'll be happy to share. So I think all this knowledge ought to be shared. So
Yep. Someone back there. Yeah, please, sir.
Yeah, I raise a question.
Yeah, please.
And, I'm a Penangite, Dr. Chung, and we all love Penang Hill, as you said. When I first saw the announcement of the 100th anniversary of the Hill Railway, and that it was going to be commemorated, the first thing that occurred to me was that today the Hill Railway is not the historic Hill Railway. And one of the controversies that occurred, as you know, some years ago was, why was the original historic cable car Hill Railway destroyed and converted into this modern train? There were some issues that were raised at the time. One was it was a historic construction, and it could have been upgraded to be made safe. And the second thing was when you created the new train, we were actually worried about the carrying capacity when you can actually go up the hill in 10 minutes instead of half an hour. So I wonder if you brought up this controversy because it was a very serious controversy. We all felt from the Penang Heritage Trust that we had lost something very valuable that could have been an important historical artifact that people would want to visit and look at, not the modern conversion that we have today. Thank you.
Any comments from you? No?
Thank you for raising this, Dr. Chung. I'm aware of the controversy. Of course, I wasn't from that generation. I did read about it. Right. But we can look at a perspective from the development in terms of social development, economic development, population growth, and things like that. So, no systems, just like our body, can live 100 years old. At some point, you got to change because if even you read the historical facts, and I was amazed actually when I was looking through the annual reports in 1946. Was it 1956 actually? So, and it has a records of, the ridership, and then the ridership was increased from year to year, and then even at the time of, gosh, I hope I think this, at the time of 1930s and growing to 60s, the ridership was already growing from 100,000 to 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, and gradually 600, 700, and so on. So, system like this, when you have so many tourists, and then there was no technology I would dare say that even today, we can stop people from going to a place that's so popular. We all been to the most popular places around the world. Try, any hills you talk about. So I talk about Yosemite National Parks. During summer, the drive inside is 4 hours drive because it's a single road. And now here we have people that is, waiting 3 hours one way going up. So we have to find a way to, as part of sustainable development, to find the most balanced method and of that moment, of that particular era, to be able to bring people up safely and come down safely. Even today, with the latest technology, it's not 10 minutes. Actually, if it's non-stop, it's 4.5 minutes to bring people up. We both, this is only our third generations. We'll be able to bring people down. If there is no unscheduled service disruption, we should be able to bring people down very safely. Every single week, we have emergencies. Just this morning, we have old lady, I cannot remember what age, suddenly had breathing difficulties. And the moment our staff hear that, we made a special trip just for him. Immediately we call the ambulance, and then the ambulance came, stand by at the lower station, and then we were prepared and we were able to send the person down. I'm not talking it happens every day, but this is a moment that I think people appreciate the speed of the railway track because it just saves lives. We have done that many, many times over. So I'll explain about carrying capacity because I've done enough analysis and I explained numerous times. So technology. So okay, now I want to use a parallel of Hong Kong, which is built 1888. Hong Kong has actually into their 6th generation, and in 2019, I think they carried 6.8 million. 6.8. We actually carry 1.8 million. We're screaming like crazy. Hong Kong brought 6.8 million up the hill. They recently installed the latest generation carriage, which is a dual coach. Used to have a 120 passenger max. Now they built 210 each time. And I'm pretty sure that yes, commercial driven, but at the same time, I think they're showing the needs, ensuring the comfort of our visitors. I do not think any of the visitors will spend 5 hours on the hill. In average, we have studied, they spend about 2 hours, at best 3 hours. Hikers are the ones who spend the longest time because when they hike up, they will loiter, they will relax, they will for 2 hours and 3 hours with the ice kacang and whatnot, on the hill. And well, the rest is just, going up, walking around, and then they go home. I always say that, there's no concern about carrying capacity because I have the numbers. With our technology, we be able to track, who goes up and what time they come down. And then, but at the end of the day, we wipe out data anyway. So hence we confident that, the carrying capacity has never been an issue. The hill is big enough to accommodate enough people, and not 1.8 million or not 10,000 visitors that stayed on the hill at any one point. At any one point, we never had 1,500 visitors on the hill at any one point, because during the peak time, it's a full load up and full load down at the same time, and then everybody witnessed that, and even then, people are complaining they have to wait 2 hours, 3 hours. So if you were going back to the old days, where the old coach, old motors, everything old, and then if you complain today that the funicular constantly have unscheduled breakdowns, and you have 10 times even more if you continue with the old systems. Many of the funicular systems around the world, they have breakdowns too, but they're not reported like Penang, like Malaysia. Because whenever funicular system break down, it is national news. As to our money, RTM 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have RTM 10, you go all the way. But when I read through, when I Google is my best source, right? So it's never become international news. But somehow Penang Hill, and we are glad because it gets the attention. That tells people that Penang Hill is near and dear to the heart. I'm glad we bring up discussion. I think we need to have constant dialogue about this, about what is sustainable development, and we have to acknowledge population is grow. More vehicles are coming to the island versus 20, 30 years ago. So hence 20, 30 years ago, we have less visitors. With the prices of car coming down, despite that prices of car is very expensive in Penang, in Malaysia in general, but it's still cheap actually, and people can buy it, just drive a kanchil from KL, to Penang. So how do you stop them? But our responsibility is to ensure that we have a system that is safe, comfortable as far as we can, and then as hospitable as we can, because it does generate economy. It does contribute to job creations for the young people in around island. Otherwise, the hill will be deserted. We have been to many places. If a place is deserted, nobody goes. Nobody wants to maintain because nobody can fund it to maintenance. So it's a question of the balls that we have to juggle in the most balanced way. Hence the importance of UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. The objective of UNESCO Biosphere Reserve is for research and education and sustainable development. And these two, research and education, is to support sustainable development. The research is about finding new methods of doing business, carrying out commercial activities, finding new methods of doing farming without exploiting, without harming the natural resources. And education is to continuously educate people. Well, when they come to Penang Hill, we want to grow their love for Penang Hill, the love for any hill, for that matter. That way they can help to conserve the hill, can contribute to the hill. So hence this actually play a very, very important role. We are committed. We are excited about UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, by the way. So but at the same time, we have to find ways to develop the place in a very sustainable manner. What we development, we are not talking high rises. We're talking about infrastructure, making sure it's safe, reliable, and comfortable. And because it's Penang, we try to make it as hospitable as we can. Right. Thank you.
If I may add quickly, Kibing. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Just I think Chok has touched upon a very important aspect and unique feature of why Penang Hill is special. Education, as a place for educating the public about our relationship with nature, no less. The reason why we are on the hill, the habitat, is also because very few places in the world are so accessible as Penang Hill's rainforest. By no means is Penang Island the most biodiverse, even in peninsular Malaysia. Don't even talk about Borneo. But we are uniquely placed as a outdoor education, environmental education center because of our accessibility. Within an hour of landing in Penang International Airport, you can be in a pristine Malaysian rainforest that has been protected, parts of which have been protected since 1911. The Bukit Kerajaan Permanent Forest Reserve, for example. It's very rare. And to have this on our doorstep, looming behind us, as you say, having our back all these decades and through all the generations of Penang people, is really something very special and I think very unique to us. And so we're very lucky to have it.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jerry. I take the train down every day because I hike up every day to the top. But that's not my point. My point is that how many people in this room, how regularly do you go up the hill? How regularly do you use the train? How often do you see people queuing up? Do you know at 6:30 you have bus loads of people, 6:30 in the morning, going up? 7 o'clock, 7:30, 7:45. They run the train every 15 minutes because the queue is just way too long. And I've always told Datuk Cheok, the reason why I'm hiking the way I do is because of the punctuality, the civility, and the great service that PHC is doing. I'm also a habitant because I just enjoy Penang Hill. I joined the Habitat as a member, my wife too. And like I say, unless you go there often enough, you will realize that, number one, the train is not over-designed. I think it's a good balance. Could be improved because once I hiked up in the night, expecting to take the 9:30 train down, I had to wait until 10 because they decided not worth it for one passenger like me. So I got played out, but that's okay, So I think we have to consider the number of people who really want to go up Penang Hill. Bus loads. Even this morning, trains were full at 8. I was coming down at 8. Trains going up were full. So if we don't have that, are we telling people, sorry, you don't deserve to go up to Penang Hill because we want to keep it old? We want to limit the number of people going up. There are more privileged people, there are less privileged people. Therefore, sorry for you. I think what is being done now is a good balance. It should continue, it should expand. I am in full support of the cable car. Thank you very much.
Okay. We have time for one or two more questions, I think.
Yeah, hi, I'm Eric. My grandpa was one of the workers who actually built the railway near the viaduct. And all my uncles always used to tell me that they are all Hakkas. So I just want to confirm that the ones who built it, the Chinese, were all Hakkas because they are all stocky. So I just want to confirm because my uncles always keep, and my dad also keeps telling me, oh, that's why we're Hakkas. We're all strong, stocky people. That's why we can work the hill.
Like the
Confirm
chief
if it's
minister.
true or not, so I can tell my uncles to leave me alone. I don't want to be a coolie anymore.
Okay.
CM is
Okay.
Hakka.
She's saying. Alex, Rexy, you had something. Yeah, Rexy will tell us about how much of a hiker's paradise Penang Hill is.
Yeah, hello, and I really enjoyed the panel discussion. My name is Rexy, and my question is actually directed to Enzo. So one of the things is we notice a lot of the history which is visible to us, but there are also lost history on Penang Hill. So one example I wanted to take was back in the 1800s, probably Enzo, in the course of your research, you probably would have come across the pools on Penang Hill. Apparently the British, the Europeans really enjoyed to bathe. And one of those places was called Richmond's Pool, as well as there is also a convalescent pool. So my first question is, did you come across anything relating to the Richmond Pool? Because a group of us hikers, we got very interested once Mike Gibby told us about this Richmond's Pool. We've been going all around trying to find where this is, but we have no clue whatsoever. And also, in a related note, have you come across, in the course of your research, any kind of this lost history which no one seems to talk about on the hill and which you felt was personally very interesting to you? Yeah, thank you.
So I think for the Rexy's question, so the lost histories of Penang Hill. In fact, before I started writing about Penang Hill, I've always been writing about abandoned historical houses around Penang, such as the Udini House belonging to Tunku Kudin and all. So that is a very interesting part of Penang's history, which which really personally fascinates me. So I think the question itself comes back to the initial question that Dr. Wee asked me, the challenges that I face during the initial course of my research. And that is a particularly challenging stumbling block that I've came across, in particular relating to the role of the hill as a sanatorium. So that particular word refers to a health resort where people went up to recuperate and convalesce. And initially, it's only the British, the military men, the servicemen from the British Empire fighting wars during the expansion of the British colonial empire back then. So they would get a doctor's note, and then they would go up there to convalesce in houses like the convalescence bungalow. So the challenge that I came across is, for example, like the Richmond's Pool that you have mentioned. And in Mike Gibby's book, I think he has depicted a few pools that is related to the sanatorium, the role of the hill as a sanatorium. So I think that particular chapter of the history chapter of the hill deserves to have another book written, especially because this book has indicated, it is a concise history of Penang Hill. But then even though, despite the limitations on the book itself, I have also dedicated a chapter that emphasizes the role of the hill as a sanatorium, particularly on the Crag Hotel, because the Crag is significant in terms of opening up a chapter where normal people, other than the British military servicemen, start to go up and enjoy the miraculous healing effects of the hill. And I think so for that particular chapter itself, I think the crag itself, you've touched a very particular interesting point. The crag itself deserves a book, on its own, because to cover it in just a chapter or two is I think it's an understatement for the hill. For the Crag Hotel. Yeah. And for the first question, on the Hakka community. Yeah. I stumbled upon this interesting fact when I was interviewing a few hill residents up there who survived the Second World War and all. So I've came across this statement as well, and I think the Hakka community has indeed contributed to the construction of the viaduct part of the railway section, and I believe Dr. Chok has read about this as well. And so this is interesting. Not just Penang Hill, but in Fraser's Hill, in Cameron Highlands, all the Highlands Bungalow, you will find different communities contributing to different segments of the hill. And another particularly interesting group that I should mention is the Hainanese. So the Hainanese is another significant community which has contributed so much to the formation of the social fabric of the highlands around Malaysia, that you will find them as caretakers of the bungalow, who would cook up some of the most interesting and memorable delicacies, such as the Hainanese chicken pie, the chicken chop, and with the potatoes and all, in the gravies. Yeah. So that is the social fabric of the hills, including in this case, in this context, the Penang Hill. So, and for that, that could possibly lead to another book on the recollections, recollections of the social the society of living up on the hill. Yeah. So
Thank you, Enzo.
yeah.
I think Rexy is looking for a Roman bath of
Yeah.
Penang Hill.
Well, two hands up. Okay, I'll allow the last two comments then. And then we have to end the evening, I think.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Baba Michael Chia. This is just a recollection. Talking about this Hainanese cook. When I was young, we used to go there every weekend. Not in the Bellevue Hotel, that was not built yet. My father and me, weekends, we got there. One of these bungalow, I don't know it's called Edgecliff or not. And the caretaker is the wife. The husband is the cook. And I stayed there in the afternoon, we went there. We have the English style tea, and also the jelly and the Hainanese, the crumpets and all these sandwiches. So that I get a taste of the Western menu. And my family itself is a very old family. The Teng family, the Chia family is the one who founded Chia Kok Si. And the Teng family, my grandmother's grandfather is the founder of the Gi Hyang Company. So my family is very old. I have lots of photographs. They're wearing the baju panjang, the Shanghai dress. So they even went to Craig Hotel. So from young, I used to go there quite regularly. I remember sometimes we stayed overnight. But this hotel, particularly Edgecliff, it's not a hotel, it's a bungalow. So sometimes we stay overnight, sometimes we don't. But outside the landscape, lots of beautiful gladiolus, it's very huge. And talking about gladiolus, my best memory of Penang Hill, 1950 something, I was 7 or 8 years old. So we learned that Queen Elizabeth, that time she just became the queen. She was on a yacht to Singapore for some function. She stopped in Penang, the harbor, the Britannia, I think her ship. So she went up Penang Hill. We already knew that she's coming there. So my father booked the hotel there to stay overnight. So in the morning, we were waiting there. I was a very small boy, wearing shorts and all that. So when the queen came to the hotel, the manager arranged for the gardener's daughter to give a bouquet of gladiolus. The bouquet is yellow and white, and the wrapper is light blue because there's a Penang color, white, yellow, and blue. So the Indian girl was dressed up very nice frock. She's about 6 or 7 years old, supposed to hand the bouquet to the Queen Elizabeth when she came. So I said, oh, the manager heard the phone call from the station, the Queen has already arrived. So this girl was so excited that at the last minute, she cried and then she just dumped the bouquet on the table and then she ran away. So the manager, nobody to present the bouquet. So she asked my father, Mr. Chia, your son Michael, can you speak good English? Yes, of course. So I was waiting there. I was holding the bouquet. When she came, she was wearing a light blue dress with white gloves. And I remember she's a beautiful girl, beautiful queen. Yeah. So of course I curtsy. Your Majesty, welcome. Yeah. So I managed to give a bouquet to her, and then I bowed to the and then she went off. Unfortunately, there's no photographer around because it's just an unscheduled flight. She just stayed there, I think, for a few hours, and then they went to Singapore. So it's not like a full mission. Full mission, they have to stop in KL. Yeah. And then the other memory I had is that you have to read a book about this one. My family owned 2 bungalows there. The Chia family, my great-great-grandfather, Sri Lee. He built the house called Northern Lodge in Northern Road. Later on, the house was sold to the Soon family, and they call it Soonville. Soon State. Up on Penang Hill, they had another bungalow called Soonville. Later on, sold to Mr. Soon at Penang Peranakan. So that bungalow also belongs to the Chia family. So, and then on my Chia family side, we also had a bungalow, forgotten the name. The reason why I'm telling you this is because I have a map of the hill, the top, all the bungalows there, and the owner's name is there. That map, I sold it to Datuk Sri Lim Chong Kiat, who is my cousin. You can ask him for that map. I don't know whether it's still to him or not. It is invaluable. No, it's about 1920s, 1930s map. It's quite big. You pull it up and down. All the bungalows is there with the names of the owners. Wow. Yeah. Wow. So we are one of the 2 families, Chinese family, who live there. That's why I got good memories of Penang Hill. Then I went there when I was very young. That time it's very cold. So I used to have a sweater, Now, of course, maybe that time very skinny. So I find it very cold. And then I remember the evening mist, and then the sunrise. So sometimes we stay overnight. Yeah. So these are all the good memories I
Yeah.
have. Of
Thank you.
So Enzo, if you can contact Dr. Sri Lim Chong Kiat, he might have the map. It's very unique map.
And then
Okay,
another
thank
book.
you. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one last comment, very short, please. I suspect half the population of the Penang Hill are here tonight and might be rushing back on the last train up.
Good evening, Chairman, and everybody else here. My name is Danny Goon. I think I put up my hand too late. After the wonderful story of our friend Baba here, I'm a bit of an anticlimax. So, actually, what I wanted to say was actually 2 points, which I'll quickly say after I firstly congratulate the Penang Institute, PHC, under my good friend, Dr. Chok, and of course, Enzo Sim, the author of the book, which I've not read, but I'm sure it'll be very well received. But it's very timely and certainly one of the wonderful things to celebrate the centenary of the railway up the hill. Now, there was a question by, I think, a gentleman called Rexy just now on pools up the hill. Yeah, I remember in the mid-60s, I was a member of the St. Xavier's under-15 rugby team under Brother Conleth. And during the training season, every Saturday morning, all of us will assemble at Moongate and run up the hill, which we all do in less than 45 minutes. But we're not to the top of the hill, we go to the brothers' bungalow. And at the bungalow, there was indeed a swimming pool. I wonder if it's still there, but Rexy, that's part of the answer. There was indeed a swimming pool, and it was out of my depth. I'm still not very tall, but it's probably 5 feet deep. The water was muddy, so Brother Conlon will make a strip to our underpants, and we swim 3 lengths of the pool. We come up, we dry ourselves, get a pot of tea, and then off we run back to the Moongate. So the pool exists, at least one pool exists.
Okay, thank you.
Now, the other point I'd like to make is I like to, I do endorse the view of Dr. Chun Simpui just now about the nostalgia of the old train. I think all of us, and I'm one of those of that particular generation, we lament the loss of our grandparents, we lament the loss of our parents, and nowadays we lament the loss of our good friends. But we all come and go, and there's such a thing called a lifetime. I like to commend Dr. Chok for your spirited defense of what the railway, Penang Hill Railway, is all about now. It's basically a sustainable way of bringing people up the hill in a timely, safe, prompt basis, hopefully without overcrowding the capacity of the hill. So I would like to support Dr. Jerry Jin in his view that this should continue. We do not know what the actual carrying capacity would be. They'll be subject to the academics. But unlike Dr. Jerry, who goes up every day, I go up every year. And it's always a pleasure to do my yearly trips up the hill. Although now I just take the train, I no longer hike. Thank you.
Okay,
Good night.
thank you, Danny. Okay, I think we have to bring the session to a close. Please help me thank all our panelists for their time and stories. Over to you, Kim.
All right, thank you very much to our panelists and of course our audience members for such an interesting and insightful discussion. And now we'd like to invite Dr. Uy to present souvenirs to our panelists. And now invite Dr. Uy to present souvenir to Dr. Chok Lei Ling.
Okay. This for you. Thank you. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And next, we invite Dr. Uy to present souvenir to Mr. Alan Tan.
Okay. Alan, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Okay.
And now we have Dr. Uy present souvenir to Mr. Ahmad Chik.
Mark, thank you. Thanks for coming. Well, I have to stand here. I think.
And last but not least, to the author of the book, Mr. Enzo Sim.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, and we would like to invite Dr. Chuck Leiling to present a souvenir to invite Dr. Chuck Leiling present a souvenir to Dr. Dr. Ui Keeping.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Okay.
everyone. And ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of our book launch event today. And if you would like to delve deeper into the untold tales of Penang Hill, you may purchase a copy of The Great Hill, A Short History of Penang Hill at a booth right over there, just inside the hall at 40 Ringgit Malaysia.
Okay. Thank you,
And
everyone.
what's more, you will
Thank
get
you.
a limited edition lapel
Thanks, Ellen.
pin, which was released in conjunction with the 100th anniversary celebration
again, Ahmad.
of the Penang Hill Railway with each purchase. And you may also grab home some Penang Hill merchandise as a memento outside the hall. And last but not least, for our online viewers who can't make it here today, you may purchase a
this for
copy
them.
of the book
Sorry.
physically at
All of
Penang
them should have it,
Institute and at Penang Hill Merchandise Store or online on Penang Monthly website. Thank you, everyone, and have a great week ahead.